towards our last session, which is the third session, Dialogue on Preparing the Centennial Generation, the Future of Work. For that, can I please have on stage our first panelist, Mr. Ghazanfar Ali, Country General Manager, Pakistan and Afghanistan, IBM. Please, sir, can we have you on stage? Mr. Ghazanfar has led the overseas assignment for IBM Pakistan, IBM Global Transformation as Cognitive Solutions and Cloud Platform Company. Mr. Ghazanfar, having studied from INSEAD France, London Business School, has served as brand leader, Power Systems IBM Middle East, Africa and Turkey, comparative and channel leader which spanned from Australia, New Zealand to Latin America, comparative leader IBM Middle East Africa, systems leader IBM Central West Africa, systems leader IBM Pakistan, and Vice President Infotech. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Mohammad Mudassir Aqil, President and CEO, Telenor Microfinance Bank. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. We're extremely glad to have you here. His 21 years of banking experience in the US and Pakistan have demonstrated success in areas of organizational restructuring, digital finance, fintech partnerships, and business growth. He has a steadfast record in consistently delivering exceptional results by developing high-performance teams, focusing on value drivers, and executing strategies. Mr. Mudassir served as President and CEO of Finca Microfinance Bank. He also serves as a director on the board of Pakistan Microfinance Network. Next, I would like to invite on stage our moderator for the last session, Mr. Saqib Ahmed, Country Managing Director, SAP Pakistan. Please, sir, can we have you on stage? Mr. Saqib Ahmed, who is the marketing leader in enterprise application software, he has hired local talent to enable digital transformation. In his 2-decade career, he also served as Director of Sales and Business Development for Oracle. He was also Country Director for Comtel, Pakistan and Afghanistan. He began his career with Nokia Siemens that led him to be Director of Sales. Middle East, he has been awarded Azazi Sabqat for academic excellence. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. Now, I'd like to hand over the proceedings to Mr. Saqib.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for patiently waiting for so long over here. I think the introduction that has been given, I will start the discussion totally through another discussion level, starting from another introduction that I would like to give about myself and try to relate it, how it is related to the centennial generation that we talk about. My parents are working, they were born in 1940. They both worked in the public sector, and my mother is a PhD in biochemistry, and my father is a has done MSc in chemistry over there. I started, born in 1970s. I have done electrical engineering, and I have an MBA as well. And my wife is a civil engineer, and she's also an MBA as well. I've got 3 kids who are all born after 2000. One of them is 16-year-old, who just got an early admission in the Cornell University, just got the admission now. I have a 14-year-old daughter who's finishing her O-level and is about to be ready to talk to me that since his brother has got an admission, she should be allowed to pursue the career in the same way as well. And I've got a 12-year-old son who right now only plays Fortnite and has nothing much to do other than that. That's a normal house in which I live, and where in this centennial generation, and with all these 3 generations living together and talking and fighting about with the 80-year-olds trying to do and tell me all the time that I'm not a good father because I'm not able to control the new generation, and my young sons telling them out that they are not able to get the light liberty set to do the things that they want to do. That's, ladies and gentlemen, is an example on a day-to-day basis that we face in our workspace, in our daily home life, and that's the point where these young generations come in and tell us that's what we have achieved over a period of time is not good enough. The difference between me and my son is 30 years. And I can tell you that I see within next 5 years, he will be able to take over and make the decisions which will be 80% right, which I can take today with all the experience that I carry today. And that's another reality. And that's the reality that we face every day in our business environment, where a young entrepreneur, young centennial, joining our office, comes over in the office and tells us that, sir, this is not the right decision. I think we should do it like this. and we see towards him or her and say, how can they come up so fast with the right approach, with the right decision, which we have earned over the period of an experience of 20 plus years? That's the fact of today. That's the story of today. And that tells us, to the first question was referred towards you, how do you feel that this centennial generation, we can make them ready for what is coming in the future, for a future which we are also right now exploring what it will be and what it will take over the period of next 5 to 10 years. When the future is not clear, how we get them ready to what is coming next?
So I think that's the fundamental question, and I think what we have gone through over the period of last 4 or 5 years, that we had a lot of talks of fourth industrial revolution, things disappearing, AI taking over and all those things. But now we have reached to a point where things are becoming more clearer. There is still a bit of uncertainty on very specific items, but overall things are becoming clear, and I think the responsibility with us is to make sure the next generation understands how to navigate this complexity. So first of all, I think the thing we need to understand is we live in an ecosystem. An ecosystem evolves. So every player is part of an ecosystem, whether it's you, the students, it's employees who gain skills and talents, whether it's employers, which are multinational companies, whether it's education institutes, or whether it's state and all those things, right? So the whole ecosystem is undergoing a change. So there is a big disruption. We moved from factory models to new innovative models where outcomes and personalization has become the new engine for innovation. So earlier, in order to create $100 billion value, you needed to create a company worth of 400,000 employees or 500,000 employees. Today, you have Googles of the world, Apples of the world. With 100,000 employees, they generate a value of over $1 trillion because they are focusing on outcomes, not efficiency. So the old model where you had 20 years of education, 40 years of career, and lifelong employment, growing your career in one area is disappearing. So, and the new model is evolving. In the new model, the currency of trade is becoming different. It's skills, it's your social contract is changing. Your social contract earlier with the employer was around, you will have a degree that will give you the entrance into a job, and then you will progress with the time and stuff, and you will have lifelong employment. Now your social contract is permanently changed. You will have lifelong employment as long as you are willing to commit for lifelong learning. And the beauty of this whole thing is that everybody, whether it's you as a student, whether it's us sitting in multinationals, whether it's people sitting on the academia or state, everybody is equally frightened. So don't think that it's a big challenge for you. When I go and see CEOs and what I see from the different interactions, talent and skills is their number one issue. So it has moved from an HR issue to a CEO issue because majority of the top CEOs, especially the thought leaders, they are saying my ability to create a different outcome for my company depends on the talent I can attract, right? So this whole ecosystem is evolving and role of everybody is evolving. I think one thing which we need to understand wherever we sit is to understand how ecosystem is changing. And then you can play your role. So it will depend on skills. It will depend on what Amir Saab said in the beginning, your ability to learn. Not what you learn, but your ability to learn. Unlearn and relearn again. And it will all be driven from the biggest factor which Piyush mentioned in the beginning as well is motivation and self-appreciation and actualization. So because in the complex world, we all will undergo a challenge in which we have to wake up with the motivation to learn again, change, adopt, and learn again. So it's not a stagnant thing. So I think one thing which we should take from such interactions is that how the world around us is changing. So it's how the new ecosystem is developing, how environment, because what we do is with these interactions, we understand what your needs are and we go back and try to change our organizations. Because for us, the important thing is to get the right talent to change our organizations. For you, the important thing is to change your behaviors to understand what's happening. So this interaction is important. I think understanding of ecosystem is important, and understanding the role and the changing dynamics of the whole environment is very important. And if our kids are able to navigate that through, they will find a way to be successful. You mentioned about your kids. I have two daughters. One of my daughter is more towards arts and the other is towards science. So the elder one has already negotiated with me that after A level, she will not go into a formal degree. She has chalked out a plan where she will develop her skills in arts through small programs. The other one, which is more in biotech, that she says that I will pursue a formal degree program. So our kids are more in, they have data on their palms. So they know far better than us, and they know how to find the relevant data. It's just the enabling environment which we need to give it to them, and that liberty to make those decisions which will help them.
Absolutely. I think, as you just said, what we need are the right set of data at the right place to make the right decision. And the person who's making the decision can be of any age group. It's more about how we provide that info. My next question, Agil Sahab, will be towards you, that I will be trying to cover the point of loyalty and cause. And I will again get it back towards me, that question. As I mentioned at the start, my parents were working in public sector for 35 years. I started my career in 98, and the first thing that I wanted to do was, I want to work for a big brand. Loyalty, Siemens, I want to work for Siemens. Whatever job I will get it over there. I like it or not, it's not the point in the 90s. I want a job, and I want a job with the right brand. And then after 12 years, when I wanted to shift my job, it was a mess at home. Because for my parents who have worked for 35 years in one organization, they think I'm totally unloyal to this job that I'm doing. And then the other point is, what was the cause that I want to do a job? Today, what I feel, that all these new centennials that they come in, they want to relate the cause, that what change they can make in the ecosystem and how they can make the life of the people better. And they are relating to that cause rather than the brand, rather than they want to work for an organization. How in this new centennial generation is the definition of the loyalty the same? And how we can relate that cause to that loyalty that has totally changing over the period of time? How would you explain that one?
I think, Saqib, that's a great question. You've partially already answered it. I think if you don't have a higher purpose, you are essentially toast anyways in the fourth industrial revolution that we are now beginning from the year 2020. So large organizations like even General Electric are finding themselves, it's difficult for them to stay intact, and they're disintegrating and really going back to the drawing board in terms of how are they relevant in this new world that we are in. So I think the best thing which is happening is that what you're saying is that the young generation is actually asking for more than a big brand and more than a paycheck. They're asking for a purpose and a higher cause. And I think if you really want to, we have Fatma, who's an expert sitting here, but I'll take a stab at it. That it's if you really want to tap into people's discretionary effort, which is, work that they don't have to do, but they're willing to give it to you, then you have to engage them at a different level. So, but this is more of sounds like an employer interest rather than a student interest. But I think from a student standpoint, I would encourage all the young people who are sitting here that they should look for a higher purpose in their life and seek something more than just a big brand, because the big brands are really temporary in this day and age anyway. So who knows which one of them will be standing 5 years from now.
A very, very fair point in terms of between the brand, and I remain with you for the moment. And I go on the next question on this front, and I will keep relating back to the example from the very start. With my 16-year-old son and with my 14-year-old daughter, the son got the admission, and my daughter is now telling that, father, let's be clear. Don't tell me after 2 years that you are a girl and I allowed your brother to go out, but I don't have the faith to let you go outside in the same environment. I would not going to listen to this whole thing because I want to be on my own and take the same leave that my brother has got. Diversity. The question that I want to talk about now is that how, with the cultural fit, with all this ecosystem, environment, and all the cultures getting together, and we also remain in this whole ecosystem with a certain culture that we carry and proud of, which is coming from the religion background as well, how this centennial generation can be ready for this future with the diversity that we are looking at, taking into consideration the culture that we carry, how that balance can be maintained within this ecosystem of especially Pakistan.
Well, I think that's almost a moot point. If Pakistan has to progress, then, girls and boys all need to be educated and they all need to contribute. You heard Ilango saying that 75% of our kids under the age of 10 don't know how to write and read. The percentage for women, for girls is even worse than that. So I don't even think I need to say a whole lot on this. This is such an obvious thing, but I'll give you a relevant example in the broader context of what happens to those societies that become monolithic or non-diverse. So look at the Japanese economy in terms of it was the roaring Asian economy in the 90s, and now everybody is saying that, a case study in terms of what not to do. There's stagnation over there, deflation, population on a declining trend, et cetera, aging population. But more importantly, they are no longer innovating. So, they used to have companies like Sony and TDK and all the brands that we grew up admiring have been replaced by either Asian brands or other Western brands. So, and I was reading somewhere that the great analogy that they said it's a Galapagos syndrome. So there are the Galapagos Islands near Ecuador, which I had the opportunity to visit a few years ago. When Darwin ended up over there a couple of 100 years ago, and he was studying the different species over there, and he took them to another country in the world, he realized that they completely had no clue how to survive in this new environment. So they couldn't adapt into a new ecosystem, and they were dying very fast. So this is exactly is the diagnosis done with the Japanese economy, because it's such a non-diverse economy, such hierarchical, such a pipeline model of creating value, that as the world changed around it in the fourth industrial generation, it didn't know how to react and how to adapt. So this will be the Pakistani society, 97% Muslim, predominantly Punjabi, all male work culture. This is exactly what would happen to our workplace also.
Absolutely right enough. Zanfir, coming to you, let me say, when I started the career again, it was only engineer, doctor, or sometimes MBA people would like to do back in 90s. That was the trend, that was the options. I have given example and relating back to start of my family discussion. So I have this third son, 12-year-old, who only plays Fortnite. He doesn't want to study. He doesn't want to go to school. We force him out. He is excellent in his analytics, and he defeats even a 10-year older people than him. How we manage such kids? There is a complete different direction that they want to adopt. They don't want to go to school, college, or university. They have excellent analytical skills. Their future that they are looking at is something more exciting out over there, but there are not much forums how to develop these special techniques that they carry, because our current complete educational system is working on a traditional way. And these kids are learning fast from all this internet, games and everything, and their requirement from the education system is different. How to get that comparison with the education system of today?
I think it goes back to the same thing, you know, the way things are changing, our systems are not changing the same way, right? But it is, if you see global examples, for example, take Norway. So they have decided that they will spend 2% of their GDP on early child education, which is from 1 to 6 years, right? Take the example of Finland, who have thrown out the current system of formal education, which is led by set syllabus and all those things. Take the example of Singapore, so this is a global thing. This is not something unique for us. The problem is that we haven't looked at the problem the same way these advanced developed nations have looked. Probably they had more resources, they put more money in research, they had more funding available, so they were able to transform their way of thinking, how to take education, how to adjust to this new behavior which is coming out of this next generation, right? So, as we discussed earlier as well, our system is getting outdated. So we have to step back, relook into the system, because quite honestly, I will not be worried whether this kid will be successful or not. I am 200% sure that this kid will be successful, right? Or whether we will provide an efficient path as a society for his success, that's the question we need to ask, right? Because we will force him to go the old way, which doesn't suit his cognitive capabilities, his learning path, his personalization. So one of the things which is changing, and this is the global, so world is moving from standardized educational or standardized human resource model to unique individual uniqueness model. So what we don't look at is that the quality of every student, the personality of every engineer, the output of every engineer should be the same. People are looking at uniqueness of every individual, and that will become the most important thing going forward, because with that uniqueness you will bring the skills which others don't have, you will bring the point of views, the creativity and the other things which will impact the business in a positive way. So our problem is to adopt as a society and put more amount in research and developing the new models where we can adopt this new generation with the way they live. So for example, one of the conversations which we were having earlier, that there is a study that these Generation Z people, they are 36% of them are okay to have 10% less pay for additional free hours. So they are okay that if you pay them less, as long as you're giving them free hours, right? So I talk to a lot of freelancers and they say, we are more comfortable earning 5 times less, but having a control on our life. Now, as a traditional employer, you say, oh, this guy is not focused on career, you will bash him and with your, you know, where is the career? Because career conversation itself is not relevant for these guys. So they have completely different values. They have completely, no, I wouldn't say completely, they have different values. They have different, things which they look for, and they have different satisfaction points. So for example, things of purpose, right? So now, Apple is a culture, Google is a culture. These things are beyond what you produce as a company. It's an ability to connect yourself with a company which is bringing a change on earth, so which is creating a new culture. So people will work for purpose. People will work for less money. People will work for different things, which we think as a parent probably might not be the right idea, but that's where we have to adopt.
Very rightfully so. People will work for less pay and they would like to have free hours. That's the life that is coming ahead. As SAP Managing Director, me and my team are called in every start of the year to Barcelona, where a big event happens, where they tell us what will be the company strategy moving forward every year. This year we were also over there, and one of the external speakers were called in, and we were given a lecture especially about that within next 7 years, there will be the centennials who will be leading one of the key positions in our organizations, and their way of working, their decision making will be quite different the way we work. And we, the generation of middle 40s, if we want to survive in this company on these key positions, has to know and train now to make sure that how we can adapt to these centennials. That's how the organizations are getting ready themselves to make sure that when these leading positions comes in, how they work together. Again, gave the example, SAP that I work for, they just announced the CEO 3 months back who's 39-year-old. That's how the whole work around Tristram is working. And that, sir, brings to my next question. What the academia should do, are they continue with the same way and the courses and the way that they are working on? We all work in the corporate sector and we know what niche is required from the new student. Do you think these academia people are treating the courses right and the way they teach is the right approach?
I want them to still give me tea after we finish the panel discussion. But I think, so I think Fatma touched on it earlier during the last panel discussion, that what are those key skills which these young people need to succeed, in my view. A lot of those things, so the organizations that they will join and how those organizations will evolve, there's hardly any industry which will not change in an exponential way in the next 10 years in the world. So whatever line of work that they will choose, it will be an evolving line of work, right? So the company will also evolve, and the nature of jobs, the nature of work, all of that is going to change. And I don't think majority of our education institutions are really thinking deeply and broadly enough on those lines. So I would even take a step back and I say we start with just the bare basics, right? So clarity of thought. I'm sad to say this, but majority of not only young, but even people with 10, 15 years of experience, if you ask them to write a clear note about the concept or the idea that they have, they can't. They can't articulate it on a piece of paper. Secondly, critical thinking, right? So we are not really training our people to think independently and question and reason. So those things are very difficult to find as an employer. And then ability to work constructively in a team, right? I mean, these are really the 3, 4 basic things that we are looking for in his employer, and then trainability, and the rest they can learn on their own, we can teach them, we can help them. But these are really the core things that I think very few educational institutions that I have seen have done impactful work. I mean, they have all courses on it, but what comes out of it, I don't really see a higher quality in that.
Fair point, and I think that's a phenomena that we are talking over here on an event where you want us, the industry people, to talk about what is the requirements from the young generation. I think it's also important that the academia and these industry people should connect with each other to decide about that what is required out of the academia to get them ready for that specific path as well. We will be opening the floor for the question after one more question from each side, and Ghazanfar, coming to you. Definition of success. Now, that's, I think, is a major issue at this point of time. With this centennials, with this middle people that we are in between, and the academia. How do you define for these centennials the definition of success? Is it a certain mode of point in their career? Is this the achievement, how they can make the life of the people better? Is this something, the financial matters that they want to take it at the very start, how these academia, the corporate, and individual, and this complete ecosystem that is changing can have a common definition of success that works for all of us.
I think we have to go back to the old conversation of ecosystem, right? So definition of a success for ecosystem is when the whole ecosystem is growing. And the whole ecosystem grows when everybody is creating value and everybody is contributing to the value, right? So if we go and go like a pendulum on one side, it might not have a value creation and it can bring the whole system down. Similarly, if we go on the other side, it might not have the right talent and all those things which will. So what we need to see is how we create, how we adopt at each level to make the whole ecosystem successful, right? So one of the questions which, so from academia and industry perspective, and then from students' perspective or employees' perspective, so first of all, we need to understand that it's not a blame game. It's not me versus you, industry versus academia versus students versus employees versus all this. It's us together. Nobody is isolated in this ecosystem. We cannot live without the right talent. Universities cannot live if they are providing, they are creating irrelevant degrees. Students cannot progress if they don't have the right skills. So one of the things is that we all have to adopt to the new one, right? And we have to adopt collaboratively. So there are new models coming in. So for example, I'll give you the example of my own company, right? So last year we did an experiment. We said, okay, we want to hire, we have this program called CBDers, Consultant by Degree program, in which we take fresh talent from the universities and then we make them global consultants. We over-specified kind of requirements, which says, okay, we will go to the top universities, we'll take scholarship people and high GPAs and all those things. More than 1,000 people qualified for that through that strict criteria. Then we ran cognitive testing using Watson and all those things. Finally, down-selected around 40 people, and it took us 1 year to make them productive in business environment, right? So imagine the cost of putting 1 year in a multinational on a bench and investing learning and knowledge amount on that thing. You become uncompetitive, right? So it's game of survival for everyone. It's not about me versus academia versus this and versus that, right? So we have to think that, okay, organizations are looking for a skill economy. People have to adopt new model in developing skills, whether it's through formal education, informal education, because 1/3 of our global resources now in the centers in US are the people who don't have formal degrees. So probably the degree requirement, which was the basic barrier of entry to come into organization, is going away. And it will not be very far in Pakistan even, where you will say, okay, we are willing to hire people on skills irrespective of degrees, right? So what will happen? What will happen to the graduation degrees then, or the post-graduation degrees, or the $1 billion which we are trying to spend on creating AI PhDs? Probably we don't need that in this industry. We need a skill, right? So we have to adopt. Academic institutes have to adopt. Students have. Similarly, I mean, as I said, the biggest challenge, which is now becoming a new emerging challenge, is talent for organizations. People have told me, and there was a chief digital officer of one big brand from region. She was running it for Middle East Africa, and we were having a conversation on the dinner, and she said, you know, I decide technology for my business based on the talent that technology is attracting globally. So I will not go for a technology which is second rated by the students. So it's very interdependent. So the whole ecosystem has to lift each other. So it's a completely different collaborative approach. We have to test new models. PTech is one of the models where academia, industry, and students come together. They define new, so we created the first one in Brooklyn in 2012 with President Obama. This was from 9th class, you have 6 years degree program, and if you are learning quickly, you can graduate quickly. So it's not necessary that you have to spend 6 years. So early graduates that came out of that program were, at the age of 18, they were part of IBM. And IBM was sitting there. So this program went so successful that right now there are 200 plus P-Tech schools globally. So it's not necessarily done by IBM, and so somewhere HP is going, some other players are going, because so we have to adopt, we have to change, we have to test new models which are fitting the new dynamics of ecosystem.
I think, thank you very much. I think very, very well explained on the example that you just highlighted. So last question towards you, change management. And I have Mazhar Saab from PTCL sitting over here, and I give one example. When I started the career, the first thing that I used to do was, outside the Siemens office, there was a card that I have to enter and click to tell what is my entry time within that office. And when I was leaving that office, I have to click it back again so that everybody knows what has been my productive working hours within that organization through that card system. That's where I started the career. PTCL, one of my key customers, I used to go over there, and there were always rooms over there which has always doors closed, and it was very difficult to reach to the manager out over there. And first you have to go outside to the secretary, take the admission, and then he allows you sitting over there, and then you reach to the guy. There was a lot of barriers just in the office by putting these walls and doors to reach to the last guy. PTCL has gone through a great transformation over the period of last 2-3 years. When I go over there, what they did was they changed all the doors. All the doors were done glass doors. And you can see through them, and you can see to the guy who's sitting across, and there was a lot of barriers that started just giving and shifting away. The way this whole office system is completely changing, the people work from homes, their ability to check what is their best productivity now as compared to 20 years back when we used to do it a card system. How do you feel the productivity can be judged out best with this new ecosystem that we are coming, where people will be working, sitting on their bedrooms, doing the excellent job that they are doing, and how we are going to judge that, how we are going to manage this space of work that is going on. What is our space of work now, and how you see it in the next 5 years?
So, Saqib Saab, just, let me just share with you that with the advent of AI and machine learning, anything which is pattern detection, repetitive work is going to be history in the very near future, right? So this is not, I'm not even talking about 5 years, I'm talking about it will starting this year, and it will, you'll start seeing the impact on the workforce. So the idea is really, what it boils down to, in my view, is that automation should be for elevation of human effectiveness, right? So it's not really machines replacing people, it's allowing us to do what machines cannot do. It's like really high quality work. So, and I think, so it's like you said, I mean, this is no longer the 9 to 5 kind of a mindset. This is no longer about where you are. I mean, the technology makes it even, irrelevant, because all of the gig economy and all of our freelancers now are contributing to organizations all over the world. So I think it's what really it boils down to is that, are you solving the right problems? Are you building the right solutions? Are you working with the right teams? And you're doing those kind of things which only a human can do. And so, for instance, even now today, this was last year, that there was a competition done in China where artificial intelligence-based system developed by scientists in Singapore actually beat human doctors in very complex brain tumor diagnosis in half the time and 50% more accuracy, right? This has already happened. So imagine now how our hospitals have been designed today on the 19th century Florence Nightingale kind of a model. right? The lady with the lamp, that she used to go around and look at the patients at night time and where they are, etc. So there's a head nurse, then there are wards, etc. But now in the developing world that we belong to, in majority of Asia, all of this work is, they don't have any legacy burden of the old industry, etc. Young people, completely new technology. So we're going to just leapfrog over all of this. And I'm just giving you an example. So what is happening now in Thailand with medical tourism is how they're redefining, you know, how a hospital should be. So it's like tourism and travel and customer service combined into like a medical business. So this is what the future of work would look like. I mean, in a lot of the verticals that we are in, right here in this country. So the traditional roles would look radically different, yes.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much. And I think before opening the question, I will say the whole way of working is completely changing in life. I think if you just read the newspaper of the last 2 days, you will be surprised at how politics is impacting our day-to-day work on there, where America is thinking over that why don't they have a stake in the European companies of Nokia and Ericsson just to manage the Chinese threat of Huawei. And think about the business disruption that this whole political environment can bring in on that front. Today with Iran, and whenever I have to explain Pakistan to all my global foreigners that I want to bring them to Pakistan, I always say to them that you can always find us for all the good reasons and all the bad reasons, but if a country is sitting next to Iran, who is a neighbor like India, who's next to Afghanistan and has had superpower of China on the end, Pakistan and Pakistani people will always be on the news because we are in the middle of such a strategic place. And that's what it relates to at the end. So I open the house. If there's any questions to any of the panelists, please. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. My name is Salman, as I am related to IT field from past couple of years. Sir, मेरा क्वेश्चन बड़ा सिंपल और बेसिक्स है. पिछले सेशन में पूछने चाह था मगर वो अनफॉर्चुनेटली टाइम नहीं मिल सका. रिलेटेड 4 चीज़ों से है. एक्चुअली 2 सेक्शंस है क्वेश्चन के. सेकंड जो सेक्शन है पहले मैं पूछूंगा. इश्यूज़ हैं एक्चुअली रादर देन क्वेश्चंस. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ये कि हम बात करते हैं, आपने जैसा कहा स्किल की, एफिशिएंसी की, तो स्किल और एफिशिएंसी की जब हम बात करते हैं तो उसको हम जज किस तरह कर रहे हैं. एकेडेमिया और ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस दोनों को अगर हम सामने रख के बात करें तो जब ऑर्गेनाइजेशन किसी भी एकेडेमिया से इंटरव्यूज़ कंडक्ट करती है या स्टूडेंट्स आते हैं उनके पास या ग्रेजुएट्स आते हैं तो वो सिर्फ उन स्किल सेट पे देखते हैं जो उनको रिक्वायर्ड होते हैं. ठीक है. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हमारा एकेडेमिया भी इस तरह लेकर चल रहा है कि एक बच्चा एडमिशन लेता है और वो डिग्री करता है. अब उसको भी नहीं पता कि वो जो डिग्री कर रहा है रेदर ये उसके माइंड से मैप भी करता है कि नहीं. मैं थोड़ा सा एकेडेमिया से लिंक करता हूँ. तो मैं ऐसे ग्रेजुएट्स को जानता हूँ जो अपने 6 और 7 सेमेस्टर में जाके भी उनको डिफाइन नहीं होता कि वो ये डिग्री क्यों कर रहे हैं. एंड लाइक हम बस कोई फील्ड ले लेंगे और कहीं पे जॉब स्टार्ट कर लेंगे. सो एकेडेमिया सिर्फ इस चीज़ पे फोकस करती है कि उनको डिग्री दी जाए रेदर देन कि इस चीज़ पे फोकस किया जाए कि व्हाट आर देयर इंटरेस्ट. 6-7 सेमेस्टर में बच्चे जाके ड्रॉप आउट होते हैं, रेलीगेट होते हैं. व्हाट्स द रीज़न बिहाइंड दिस. इस पे कोई फोकस नहीं करता. एंड द सेकंड थिंग इज़ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इस चीज़ पे फोकस करती है कि हमने वो जो रिक्वायर्ड स्किल सेट है हमें जो चाहिए हमने सिर्फ वो उठाने. अब एक बच्चे का आप इंटरव्यू ले रहे हैं, माइट भी उसका वो स्किल सेट ना हो जो आपको रिक्वायर्ड हो, मगर उसका वो स्किल सेट हो सकते हैं जहाँ आप उसे डायरेक्शंस दे सकते हैं. डायरेक्शंस देने वाला कोई नहीं है. एवरीबडी इज जस्ट गेटिंग व्हाट दे वांट. ठीक है. सॉरी टू से लाइक ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस आई वुड से कि इस मामले में थोड़ा सा सेल्फिश होती हैं कि जो उनको चाहिए होता है वो उसको देखते हैं रेदर देन इस सेक्शन को देखा जाए कि उनको किस डायरेक्शन में भेजना है. और एकेडेमिया को भी मेरे ख्याल से इस पर्सपेक्टिव से काम करना चाहिए कि अगर एक बच्चा आईटी की फील्ड में काम कर रहा है और उसका माइंड फोटोग्राफी की तरफ जा रहा है तो इट्स द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ देयर कोऑर्डिनेटर्स, देयर टीचर्स टू गाइड हिम इन दैट पर्टिकुलर डायरेक्शन रेदर देन गेटिंग अ डिग्री दैट बाय द एंड उसको कोई जॉब ना मिले या उसमें उसको कोई इंटरेस्ट ना हो. बहुत सारे ऐसे, मैं एक समिट में गया था 2018 में हुआ था डिजिटल यूथ समिट. उसमें एक 4th सेमेस्टर की मेडिकल की स्टूडेंट थी एंड शी वाज लाइक मैं ये डिग्री कर रही हूँ जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ माय पेरेंट्स. मुझे अपनी फील्ड में इंटरेस्ट इस एज सच नहीं है, मगर इस वजह से करूँ क्योंकि मेरे पेरेंट्स ने कहा। सो ये दो मेजर ऐसे इश्यूज हैं जिस पे हम बात करने को तो मेरा नहीं ख्याल हम एग्री हैं। एवरीबडी जस्ट लाइक व्हाट दे वांट, उस चीज़ के लिए वो आर्ग्यू करते हैं।
फेयर इनफ जी। बिफोर गजनफर मैं ये क्वेश्चन आपको पास ऑन करूंगा, बट उससे पहले सिर्फ एक कमेंट आपको, आपका क्वेश्चन से ज़्यादा एक तज्जिया है सर्टन सिचुएशन के ऊपर जो हम डे टू डे बिजनेस, बट एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन मैं आपको एक चीज़ बता सकता हूँ कि जब हम लोग हायर करते हैं, हमारे पास वो 30 मिनट्स का एक इंटरव्यू टाइम होता है जिसके अंदर हमने ये जज करना होता है, जो कि हमारी कंपनी हमारे पे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी डालती है टू गेट द बेस्ट रिसोर्स आउट दैट टाइम। अगर हमने वो जजमेंट आपके सीवी पर करनी हो ना, तो हमें इंटरव्यू की ज़रूरत नहीं होती। हम उस 30 से 45 मिनट्स के अंदर बैठकर सिर्फ ये जज करते हैं कि क्या ये शख्स, क्या ये बंदा will be working with the same pace that we are working for? Does he has that hungerness to learn, and is he there to run along on the same change that we are working on? I can assure you that in the corporate sector हमारे लिए रिसोर्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होती है। हमें बहुत कम हेडकाउंट्स मिलती हैं और हमें वो बेस्ट रिसोर्स, क्योंकि एक रिसोर्स को हमें कैरी होता है फॉर 3 साल से 7 साल और मोर के लिए। So we are very particular in that we hire the skill that we look into. We don't look into what university has only told you, that has made you to that stage of that interview. But what we look at is a totally different dynamics. Gazanfar, over to you.
Okay, so again, it will go back to the basic things which we were discussing earlier, right? So, अगर generation Z जो है वो अपने बाकी सारे decisions में assertive है और they know everything, so how can we expect कि जी as far as your skills, your occupation, your future is concerned, you are so dependent on everybody else. We can play this game of, you know, defending ourselves and blaming others, right? So the world we have come into is everybody has to take the control and responsibility of our own self. So we will publish as industry what skills we need. And the skills is very simple game, right? So what you can do. So irrespective whatever you have written on your CV, is irrespective what you have, whatever degree you have, we want to see a demonstration of what you can do. And if we have a job, if we have that skill requirement, we will hire you for that, right? Now, how you navigate yourself, if you are so informant about which online platform you should be, what social media you should use, what movies you can, how can you be so ignorant about the most important piece of your life, which is what skills you have to develop, right? Our job is to be transparent with you that these are the areas where we will invest. Now, I'll recommend everybody to go and look at the recent studies which are coming out. So there is a World Economic Forum study which just came out in January. They have mentioned 96 roles. They have mentioned 7 clusters. They have mentioned 5 business skills which you need to be successful in the future, right? Now, it's not necessarily you do a 5-year degree on that. You can have micro skills program and get yourself ready, right? And our job is to make sure when people like you come to us, we remove all the resistance of, bureaucracy and old mindset of, bringing certain things, and make sure that you come and participate in our business. Because our dependency is on the success of such skills. So we all have to change the mindset. We all have to take the control, and we all have to take the responsibility. Only then things will change. Otherwise, we can keep blaming each other, and we can keep defending ourselves for the rest of the life.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. My question to Mudassir, you talked about digitalization, you talked about automation and efficiency, which means a lot of roles are being taken over by machines. So there's this recent talk about 4-day week and probably 3-day work week. What's your perspective on that, considering all this automation and digitalization? Important for our upcoming students who will be joining the professional lives.
देखिए खुरन साहब, हमारे अभी आपकी तो नॉलेज में है, Alibaba Group and Financial is a shareholder now in our bank. तो वहाँ मुझे जाने का इत्तेफाक हुआ अभी कुछ महीने पहले उनके हेड ऑफिस में हांगजू में। तो वहाँ पे एक एक्रोनिम वो यूज़ करते हैं, एक 996 लाइफस्टाइल, राइट। तो वो कहते हैं 9 to 9 6 days a week। तो वहाँ इतनी ऑटोमेशन है, मगर वो तो 3 गुना ज़्यादा काम कर रहे हैं, रोज़ाना 12 घंटे काम कर रहे हैं। तो अभी मुझे पाकिस्तान में तो 3 day वर्क वीक का कोई फ्यूचर नज़र नहीं आता। होना भी नहीं चाहिए, फातिमा कह रही है।
ठीक है जी। there was a question from the student from the back. जी please.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम इम्तियाज़ अली है, एमपी का स्टूडेंट हूँ। मेरा क्वेश्चन यह है कि इज़ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस एंड रोबोटिक टेक्नोलॉजी गोइंग टू पुश द वर्ल्ड इन अदर इकोनॉमिक रिसेशन और मार्केट इज़ रेडी टू एक्सेप्ट द आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस एंड मार्केट हैव एनी प्लान फॉर ह्यूमन? And my other question is, world is moving toward the deglobalization. We have experienced globalization after 1989, and now we are moving to the deglobalization. And the industry or business planners have any plan to face such challenges?
So it's other way around. Artificial intelligence is a huge opportunity. Look, so what has driven such a global mass scale development of artificial intelligence? If you see history, the global productivity was going down from 70s to 80s to 90s to 2000 and onwards, right? The estimate for artificial intelligence to lift up the global productivity is around 1.2%. So artificial intelligence will lift up the global productivity by 1.2%. Now let me set the context. Steam engine lifted the global productivity by 0.3%. Robotics in factories lifted the productivity by 0.4%. The whole IT revolution lifted the productivity by 0.6%. So this AI will lift it by 1.2%, which is trillions of dollars of new economy which will be created out of this. So again, we have to change our mindset. It's not time to be frightened. It's time to be aggressive. It's bringing more opportunity to us. It's opening new fields. It's opening new avenues. It's creating new jobs. So rather than getting negative about it, we should be bullish about it.
Last question.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mudassir and my question is कि अभी सर ने कहा कि जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज़ हैं वो शिफ्ट हो चुकी हैं, वो अब हायर कर रहे हैं स्किल कैंडिडेट्स को, वो नंबर ऑफ़ एजुकेशंस को अब ज़रा निगलेक्ट कर रहे हैं। मेरा एक बेसिक सा क्वेश्चन है कि ये जो नंबर ऑफ़ एजुकेशन होते हैं, 4 साल की डिग्री होती है, इज़न्ट इट सपोज टू गेट अस दैट जॉब? अगर नहीं स्किल्स पे फोकस कर रहे हैं तो हम ये 4 साल क्यों लगाते हैं पढ़ने में?
अच्छा देखिए, अगेन who said कि जी this is supposed to give you the job? I mean, you are following a career on an old model, and if you come out and become irrelevant, then it's a different problem, right? So for example, what I was saying, that our requirement has changed. So when there was a factory production model of education and consumption, people were looking for the basic degrees and giving the jobs accordingly. Now, so if you go back to this recent studies which have been done, with automation, jobs are changing, their tasks are changing, which Mazhar Sahab mentioned, right? So with that, what is happening, there is a middle tier of tasks, middle tier or middle wage workers whose tasks are going out, and these were the workers which were dependent on degrees. So they were people like who has done something in accounting, so he will get into a bank and become an operations guy, right? Now, half of that task will go away in automation and half of it will go down to someone else. So when the model is changing, the academic model has to change and the learning model has to change. So it will change from existing degree-based one-time education to lifelong learning model, and everybody will have to adopt that. 27% of the people will change their occupation, right? So you're talking about 4 years in investment we are talking of somebody invested in an education and then occupation for 10 years, and then that occupation completely disappears. What people earlier mentioned, so for example, there might be a possibility tomorrow accounting might not last in a certain industry as a profession. So those accountants will have to retrain themselves. So at the student level, you still have that flexibility to change your courses, to change your future course of learning, to adopt a different methodology to gain the skills. Okay?
Thank you very much, panelists, for this one. Was this I think that the time was over. We can take that discussion forward on the tea break that we go along. Just one final comment on this one, and I relate back to what I said. I'm coming from Government College Lahore, and 20 years back I was an Urdu debater. और उसमें एक नज़म पढ़ी थी मैंने, जो कि एक रावी मैगजीन के अंदर उसके आती थी, जो रोमानवी अंदाज में थी. 20 साल बाद वो रावी का मैगजीन दोबारा मेरे सामने आया, और वो नज़म जब दोबारा आई तो मैं उसको आजकल के सेंटेनियल और इंटरप्रेन्योर लेवल के ऊपर टोटली डेडिकेट करता हूँ. एंड दैट वाज दिस दैट के हकीकत से फरार अच्छा नहीं होता. हिसारे ज़ात से बाहर निकलकर ज़रा सोचो, जो होना है वो होना है, तो फिर यूं सोचते रहने से क्या हासिल. चलो अपने जज्बों को जुबान दे दें, चलो अपने तखय्युल को ख्याल दे दें, चलो अपने सच को हकीकत का नाम दे दें, क्योंकि हकीकत से फरार अच्छा नहीं होता. Thank you very much, panelists, for this one.
Thank you, sir. I'm extremely grateful to all of you present at the stage for conducting such an amazing session. I would request you all to remain seated. Before moving ahead, I would like to give a special thanks to a diplomat from Russian Embassy sitting in the second row of the middle column. Thank you so much, sir, for coming here. Now, I would like to invite on stage DG Islamabad Campus, Rear Admiral Naveed Ahmed Rizvi, to come up on stage and present shields to our panelists and moderators. So, ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Mr. Ghazanfar Ali. Please, sir, step forward. Mr. Mohammad Mudassir Akil, Mr. Saqib Ahmed, thank you very much, everyone. I would like to request our DG Islamabad campus, sir, please, could you come forward for a formal word of thanks?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respectable dignitaries from various fields, our Bahria University alumni and faculty and students from Islamabad, Lahore and Karachi campuses, Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Bahria University, Pakistan, I would like to extend my profound gratitude to all of the participants, keynote speakers, panelists and our valued guests of this seminar for sparing their precious time and being with us for this thought-provoking session to talk about future of work. It is indeed a great privilege for us that for the first time in the history of Bahria University, an event of this scale has been organized to bridge the gap between academia and industry. I know there is a long way to go, but it's a humble beginning. The success of this session largely is due to the presence of the industry, experts, who we see as our knowledge partners. Further, I am also pleased to see some participation from our academic community, faculty and students from Islamabad, Lahore, from Lahore and Karachi. I am sorry, I would apologize because we didn't have much time to seek questions from these stations. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that the world is changing and changing very fast. And unless we match this speed, it would be very challenging for us to remain relevant. much has been talked about, and I'm sure you people have taken a lot of lesson from today's discourse. We therefore believe that our curricula should be industry-driven, which would then ensure future relevance of our programs. There were a few questions from the students also regarding the relevance. I think any university or an institution should be able to create those conducive environment where, as somebody said, learning, unlearning, and relearning is taking place, where you are able to think critically, where you are able to transform into a wholesome personality, because tomorrow's industry not only needs the degrees, they would like to have, in my opinion, they would like to have those guys who can deliver. Yes, I would agree that today we talked a little bit about the motivation factors of this generation are different. And we as parents and those who are having children like of my age has been very aptly brought out. So their motivation factors are different. I think that's to be kept in mind. Well, the purpose of this seminar was not only to highlight the gap between the skill set and our existing efforts to develop our students, but to also initiate a move towards a tangible work plan to bridge this existing gap. I would therefore suggest our academic departments to continue this interaction with the industry and propose a strategy with an actionable roadmap in this regard. And in the end, I would specifically like to thank our Directorate of Marketing for envisioning and executing a successful beginning towards preparation of our generation for future of work. Further, I would also like to appreciate my Islamabad campus team for successfully hosting this event. I personally thank to each one of you, those who've been here, and it has been a very exhaustive session. But I think there is one thing which is required for this generation. You must honor your commitments and perseverance. No artificial intelligence can bring in these human virtues and traits which are required. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would request honorable guest speakers, panelists, along with the head office management and the organizers to come in front of the stage for the group photograph.